Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In any kind of relationship, you would be able to observe and obviously figure out what is the power dynamic. So who's who, what's what. Let's say you have a couple and they are in an intimate relationship. There's always going to be one that's going to be a little bit like this and the other one a little bit like that. And I mean about being a little bit more disinterested in the relation. And you can figure that out by the way they act to one another. The same is in a relation when you see two people talking to one another as friends. I know friends should have the same status, but they don't. It's always someone is a little bit the boss or of the other one, unfortunately. And the same when you walk in a room at work, you figure out who's the boss and who's the subordinate. Now, that's the dynamic. But then you are able, after a while, if you pay attention, to see how great this difference is between the moods, between the positions, each member of the group or member of the relationship, if there are two. So for instance, if you see I don't know, a family, intimate relationship between a man and a woman, you could figure out who's, I'm going to just exaggerate, obviously, who's the asshole or who's the bitch, okay? And then you're going to figure out how much of a bitch she is and how much of an asshole he is. If he's the asshole, you want to see how much of it he is. Is very much an asshole or is he just a little bit an asshole? The same here with a woman. The same. Is she just a little bit a female dog or she's more than a female dog, of a female dog? So the same with the boss. The way they talk, you can figure out if that's just the one step above the other one in the relationship, the subordinate, the boss, or is the guy that is like 5 steps? They speak differently. Now we have here a situation, an economic relationship between two countries, and these two countries are Russia and Japan. But we have another country called United States of America, who is very much intertwined with Japan's decisions, international, foreign affairs decisions, which is very strange, don't you think? It's like you are told by your neighbor how to interact with other people in the neighborhood. But again, this is the relationship, and you can figure out how much your neighbor is your boss, just observing how the boss talks to you. So if I'm staying outside and I see your neighbor, I'm sorry, if you look at your neighbor talking to you, I realize how much he's an asshole. What's the difference of, who's the boss in the relationship between you and your neighbor? Or just maybe you're equal. So we have here an article that would show how much United States is the boss of Japan in relationship or in relation to Russia, with economic trade between Japan and Russia. This article comes from Sputnik, and it is this is the title: Japan's trade deficit with Russia is up 163% to $5.1 billion in April to September. Finance Minister reported. Finance Ministry. So from April 2022 until September 2022, the trade deficit between Japan and Russia is up 163%. Japan trade deficit with Russia jumped 163% to 750 billion yen, which is only $5.1 billion, in the first half of the 2022 fiscal year, which started on April 1st, compared with the same period last year, according to data released by the Japanese Finance Ministry on Wednesday. This is November 9th, the article. Data showed that exports to Russia fell by 46.9%, while imports from Russia increased 36.1%. Japan's exports of ruble products to Russia to rubber products to Russia decreased 91.8%, exports of semiconductor parts by 96.6%, playback and recording video equipment by 98.8%. This is Japan's exports, okay, to Russia. In addition, car exports, which account for 58% of total Japanese exports to Russia, decreased by 41.6% and auto parts by 88.4%. At the same time, imports of food products from Russia showed an increase of almost 30%. Imports of energy resources increased by 51.9%, including a 90% increase in liquefied natural gas import. Food and energy prices have been growing for 13 months in a row, coupled with inflation and historic lows of exchange rate of the Japanese currency against the US dollar. Why did this happen? Why is this like this? And this is where the relationship, the dynamics must be observed and interpreted rightly, I guess. Why did Japan, for instance, started some sanctions against Russia, for instance? What does Japan has to do with Ukraine war? Nothing but, I think, being pressured by the boss. Now, to get to this kind of deficit, okay, in trade deficit with a country, I would say, at the suggestion of your friend that you have a certain dynamic with, tells you how much of a asshole that relationship is, if you know what I mean. So, how much do you need to be the servant? You know, how slavish you have to be in order to maybe hurt your people, your economy in such a way in relation to a country that has not done anything to you, but because you're pressured or pressed, or however you want to call it, suggested by your other friend. But the other friend also has military personnel on your territory. And by the way, look into history and see how the Japanese constitution was written after 1945, after the unconditional surrender. And I will use what Hirohito, at that time he was the emperor of Japan, he made a communique on radio when he that was the only thing that was allowed, that he will remain the emperor, but he had to say this. He had to say that he's not the divinity, because he was supposed to be the divinity, blah blah blah, and so on, something divine. So he had to get rid of that, and he said this: I ask you, my subjects, to bear the unbearable, or something like, let's bear the unbearable. And they did. I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, they deserved it because they did this. Again, things are more complex. But, oh, they attacked Pearl Harbor and we had to respond. It's much more to that. And I'm gonna give you two things. One, someone had already broken the code of the Japanese military, which was the United States. One. Second, before all this happened, Japan tried to fix certain things in the United States and negotiate regarding their ban to go and do certain things and buy and do business in the Southeast Asia, which is, like I would tell you, not to go and buy grocery from the store, the town's, the only town's store. You need grocery, right? And you try to talk to me and say, hey, Emil, I gotta go, I got kids. Well, yeah. And then you catch me, you think you're gonna catch me in a dark alley, and you punch me in the face a few times in Pearl Harbor in daylight, and then, but you don't knock me out, and then I fuck you up. So anyway, just look into these little things. How other countries and other people could interpret, based on evidence, the same facts that we have. But some people choose not to look at them, and some people try to maybe overemphasize them. That's why the truth is always in the middle. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.